If I could go back and start my remote cleaning business again, there are 3 things that I would do completely differently this time. These mistakes cost me thousands of dollars in revenue and months of time. But more importantly, they kept me stuck at the same income level for months when I could have been growing much faster. So in this video, I'm going to show you my 3 biggest lessons from building my own remote cleaning business to over $40,000 per month. So you can skip the headaches yourself and go faster than I did. So the first mistake I made was around hiring, and specifically hiring cleaners. When I first started my remote cleaning business, I probably made every hiring mistake you could imagine. I was posting generic and cookie cutter job ads on every single platform imaginable, essentially hoping that I would find a cleaner who even wanted to work for me. And I thought hiring was just about finding people who wanted to clean houses. And I was thinking to myself, like, how hard could that actually be? Turns out I was completely wrong. It was very difficult, and I was having a very hard time finding the right kind of person for my cleaning company. I'd get responses from people who literally haven't even done cleaning in their life, don't even have a car, and have never even represented a brand or a company in their life. And on top of that, I was hiring out of desperation, not from a place of standards. I remember one cleaner I hired, let's just call her Rachel. She seemed perfect in the interview process. She had a car, she had experience, was immediately available, and then within 2 weeks, I had 3 customers complaining about her. She brought her boyfriend to a job, and she doesn't even use the cleaning checklist that's provided. And that's when I started to internalize, like, I wasn't actually hiring cleaners, I was really hiring representatives and brand faces for my entire company. And on top of all that, the real kicker was I was managing everything. I'd spend hours trying to deal with no-shows, coordinate schedules, putting out the next customer service fire. I was truly working in my business as opposed to on my business, and it was stunting my growth. What actually worked, and the way that I had approached it after that kind of tumultuous period where I couldn't figure out hiring, was I really took a proactive instead of a reactive approach to all things hiring. Instead of posting a random job and hoping for the best, I started treating hiring like a real business process. First, I would have my non-negotiables, right? So things that I would need to absolutely have before I would even move forward with any of my cleaners. So I had to have a background check that they would pass. They had to have reliable transportation, and they had to have years of cleaning experience so I know I could trust them to deliver a premium service. After all of those 3 non-negotiables were in place, my final requirement would be they have to do a trial test clean so I can see not only how good are they at cleaning, but also the qualitative aspects that go into being a great cleaner, such as great communication, attention to detail, having accountability, and just having a pleasant personality to be around, right? Those are things that I'm looking for in a company that might not be there in the interview process. I stopped looking for people who just need another job and started to target real cleaners looking to upgrade their current situation. Maybe they worked for a big franchise and wanted more flexible hours, or they were sick and tired of doing work under the table that was inconsistent and wouldn't provide them enough income to sustain the life that they wanted to live. I also implemented what I would call shadow shifts, where I'd have newer cleaners go with my most experienced and trusted cleaners to see if they could actually clean at the level of the people that are my quote unquote A cleaners at my company. This isn't necessarily training, but it's more so cultural onboarding by just being around that person. So they start to understand, how do we communicate with clients? How do we handle uncertain situations? And most importantly, how are we presenting ourselves so we can charge the premium service and be earning top dollar? And the other crucial piece was building comprehensive systems around the entire cleaning process, because naturally it would weed out the cleaners who are not a good fit. If they can't follow the checklist, if they can't check in, if they can't upload photos, if they're not doing all the little details that are required and built within your system, then they're failing on many different levels, not just the cleaning. Because what I've also learned is hiring a great cleaner is not just about the cleaning, it's also about the other facets that make up the cleaner. We're talking about having good communication, being reliable, learning how to handle situations that arise, being accountable for the work you do, right? These are things that if you have a good system, it will convey the people who are doing all those things. And here's where it gets interesting. Once you built this system, now you can actually assess performance across the entire company. So I would have a tier-based system for my cleaners and be able to allocate the most high priority and best jobs to the cleaners who do the best at my company. So that priority scheduling and being able to understand who's actually doing the best would retain my best cleaners for the longest period of time. And once I figured out the hiring aspect of it, that's when my revenue started to explode. I was stuck at like the $7,000 or $8,000 level, just banging my head, putting out a bunch of fires. And I quickly jumped to over $20,000 a month in revenue after figuring out what is the system, how do I hire, how do I bring in the best talent and retain them. My time in the business also was dramatically dropping because I wasn't dealing with all the headaches of a bad cleaner. That brings in all kinds of stress. We're talking financial stress, emotional stress, time stress, everything that goes on with having a bad cleaner on your team, it just further maximizes it across your entire company. Reducing all of that also made the business much easier to run. By the way, if you want to work with me and my team to avoid all of these kinds of mistakes and build your own remote cleaning business in 120 days or less, click the link in the description below. The second major mistake I made with this business is really what I would call the founder's control syndrome. Even after I had good cleaners, I would still try and micromanage every single thing about the cleaning. Now, while I think that's a good thing because you care about the business, it also can be a double-edged sword in the sense that you have to start thinking as the owner of the business eventually. And if you're doing every single aspect of the business, you're not going to be able to run the business at scale. I remember the breaking point pretty clearly for me. I was in my car. It was the middle of the week. I was in between sales calls. I was answering cleaner messages. And then I had 2 or 3 upset clients that I was trying to deal with all at once. And I was looking at my month in revenue. I was like, man, I'm still at $7,000, $8,000. I'm stuck here. And then I realized I'm the bottleneck of the business. And that's why we're not growing anymore. And the fear of delegating is totally real. And it was real for me when I did it as well, right? Because you don't want to let go of everything because your reputation is tied to the company. This is very much your baby, especially in the early stages of your business. One bad experience could cost you a bad Google review, potentially not refer you any more customers. And obviously that has huge impact on the overall reputation of your company. But here's what I learned. When you try to control everything, you effectively start to control nothing at scale. I was doing a mediocre job at 10 different tasks instead of doing an excellent job at a couple things that I'm very good at. So this transformation really started when I realized that letting go of control didn't necessarily mean I had to lower standards. It actually meant that I had to build systems that would produce the standards that I am accustomed to or the way that I would like the company to run. So the first thing I delegated was customer service. I had a part-time virtual assistant that came on. They started to run the morning management of anything that occurred at my cleaning company. Now, everything had an SOP behind it. Everything had a system behind it. And there was a process that was clearly outlined. It wasn't just some, hey, handle all of these cleanings all of a sudden. It was a very regimented process where every single thing was detailed. So they knew exactly what to do to produce the result that I was looking for as it pertained to customer service and morning management in this particular case. And after I had all of that in place, I realized that they were actually better at doing it than I was, simply because I couldn't get to everything that they were doing because I had 10, 20 other things that I was trying to prioritize at any given moment. So they actually could focus, they could be responsive, and do a great job just by following all the instructions that were laid out for them. Next, I systemized my entire CRM sales process. I before was doing everything pretty much on pen and paper, and it was very disorganized. I didn't know who to follow up with. Everything was chaotic. I had what you would call the leaky bucket syndrome, which is like everything is falling through the cracks at scale. So having a CRM that was systematized, tracking was correct, all the workflows were correct, everyone was being followed up in a timely fashion. So having the CRM allowed me to put in someone in the sales seat, not worry about how their performance is going to be because I had detailed tracking of everything that should have occurred in the entire sales process, and I could provide feedback from there. So I effectively removed myself from a lot of those things like follow-up calls and follow-up emails and spending that time. So the key in all of this was I didn't just dump people into these roles, right? I first created the systems, provided proper training, and then had regular check-ins on feedback on what actually is going on. And then from there, I could establish proper KPIs, let go of control, and know that things are being handled properly. So learning to let go of the day-to-day operations was crucial because it now basically bought back all of my time within the business. I wasn't focused on $20 per hour tasks. I could then focus on the high leverage stuff, such as marketing, business development, system optimization. And this shift in focus, which is what I think it truly is what led to my third breakthrough in the business. Because when you're not drowning in the operational detail, you can see the opportunity for exponential business growth. And the third thing that I wish I knew earlier was that this business is not going to be linear in path. I know a lot of people come into the business, they'll make a financial model, they'll chart everything out. Here's how everything's going to go. First month's going to be 5,000, next month's going to be 7,000, following month's going to be 10. And they get quickly awakened to the fact that business is not that way. It is not linear, and that's not what typically happens when you run these types of businesses. And I was naive to that as well, and that was my first expectation of how this was all going to play out. And whenever I didn't hit that next growth trajectory, I would panic and be like, oh my gosh, I'm doing everything wrong, and what am I doing, essentially, when I wouldn't hit that goal? But here's what I didn't really understand about business growth at the time, especially with these types of businesses. Oftentimes, you will plateau, you will put in work, and that is for that breakthrough moment. And that's when something suddenly clicks, the 4 or 5 things that you've been working on are finally at a point where they're producing results and you get a huge jump. And I think with this business in particular, it is prone to that as well, because with each kind of operational threshold you move into, there are new challenges and new blocks and new management issues that you're going to face that you've never faced before. And until you work through those problems, you're never going to get to that key moment where you install that new system or you make that first hire that jumps you from that $7,000 or $8,000 level to that $20,000 plus level. And I think understanding this would have saved me a ton of stress and given me a lot more patience to work through longer duration problems and ultimately get to that goal faster. And I think the biggest breakthrough in that kind of plateau jump for me personally was when I brought on my first virtual assistant. This wasn't just hiring someone to answer emails. This was really bringing in my first operator of a business or future operator of the business who could handle the day-to-day operations of the entire company. So the VA that I brought on, she was in South Africa. She specialized in customer service, and she eventually was able to learn everything that's in the business, right? Everything from customer service, the systems that we use, the softwares that we use, how do we communicate with clients, how do you run sales, right? Everything that goes on in the day-to-day operations of this company, she slowly got ramped on all of the tasks that went into those roles. And it's not an overnight thing, right? She's starting out slow when you first bring them on with very simple delegation tasks. You want to see if they can do those things well. And then if they can do those things well, you can graduate them to more responsibility or higher leverage things that are going on in your business, right? For example, you might have them run the first interview process for a cleaner. And eventually, after they've interviewed enough candidates, they've seen how the onboarding experience goes in your company, and they see how performance goes in the actual cleaning, they eventually will be able to make that entire decision of who gets to join your team on their own. An example of this whole process playing out is the cleaner hiring experience, right? Initially, you could have them start out with just sourcing a cleaner for an interview. They can graduate into taking an interview with the cleaner. And then eventually they can be graduated into maybe even making the final decision on whether or not they think it's a good fit for your team. That would obviously come after a long period of time, after they've seen many cleaners join the team, how they perform, what kind of profiles typically do best, and get that real experience. But that is a stair-step system of more responsibility over time. It's also trust. You're building trust with them over time that they are capable of executing the day-to-day operations. So it doesn't have to feel like I'm handing over the business just because I hired somebody, right? It's a gradual process of delegation here. So when I learned to implement VAs, build structures around that, get SOPs in place, that's when my business jumped from $20,000 to over $40,000 per month. Or at the same time of reducing my total time in the business by a significant margin. Where I was working 30 plus hours per week, I was working under 10 hours per week at that point. But the key part was definitely about having the right person in the seat. If you have the wrong person that's doing all your day-to-day, obviously that can have a very negative effect. Conversely, if you have a great person in that seat, they can be a superstar within your organization. And going through that exercise of onboarding my virtual assistants and building that team out really taught me that true scaling isn't about just putting in a ton more hours. It's about thinking critically of what do I need to do to achieve the outcome I want that does not require all of my time. And can I build a system around that? Because in this remote cleaning business, there are only really a few key activities that really require the cleaning business owner. Major client relationships, high-level budget decisions, system optimizations, and critical hires are probably like the main 4 buckets I would say that you need to be responsible for. Everything else can really be delegated. And the last part I'll say about the virtual assistant breakthrough is you're really capitalizing on geographical labor arbitrage, the phenomena that's occurring where you can get a college-educated person and pay them a good salary in their native country, but it's very cheap relative to your country, is what really makes this a very unique opportunity for you to grow while still maintaining healthy profit margins. And I would tell anybody that's starting this type of business, that's a foundational element for scaling, especially in the early stages when you're trying to be smart about how you're spending all of your resources. Building a remote cleaning business does not have to take as long as it took me if you know what to focus on at the right time and to avoid the mistakes I made. The biggest lesson is that growth isn't linear. If you find out the right thing at the right time, your business can jump from 3,000 to 10,000, 12,000 to 20,000, and so on. If you want to work with me and my team to avoid these kinds of headaches yourself and build your business the right way, click on the link in the description below. See you in the next video.